Hey guys, Chris Clothier here, bringing another episode of the Grind Podcast to you. I'm excited to be with you, your host, Chris Clothier. And this week, we're talking about how I got started in real estate. I was an accidental real estate investor. I hope you guys will find this interesting and informative, because I know many of you that listen are not just entrepreneurs, but you're super excited and interested in real estate and real stories about real estate. Mine, I think, is interesting because I didn't have this bug about I want to be a real estate investor. As y'all have heard through previous podcasts, I was in the grocery business, and it's the business I was raised in. You know, my father had me stocking shelves and, bagging groceries and running carts out to cars and bringing the carts back in when I was 11, 12, 13 years old. We were a lot of times leaving school when we didn't have sports practices, and we were driving out to the grocery store while my dad and stepmom closed the store, counted the money, made the deposits, and we're sitting up there either doing homework in the offices or going to sleep because it's getting late, whatever it ends up being. I was just raised around the grocery industry. That was where I thought my true passions were going to be. That's where I thought my true money was going to be made. I even had side gigs back then. I was a paid soccer coach that was traveling the country with different soccer teams and coaching ODP, and I just had all these other things going on that I thought were really my bill payers, the things that were going to be my profession as I got older. I started my very first company, as I've shared with you guys. It was in the grocery industry. So real estate for me was this, something I didn't really have this massive interest in, but I found myself in a very, very unique situation. And some of you may find yourselves in this situation, and you may be looking for a solution. You may be looking for a way in, and I'm going to tell it. I'm going to share it with you. So the year, I believe, was 2003. It was around late July, early August. My wife had just left Denver, Colorado to go back to Memphis, Tennessee to be with her sister, who was either delivering or getting ready to deliver her first child. And she was going back to help her sister. So I am actually in a hotel room at the time. My wife, myself, my, not quite or just over 1-year-old son, we're all living in a 300 square foot efficiency long-term hotel room. My son loves it because breakfast is served every day. We like it because dinner's served every night. Drinks are served 4 days a week. My son can go get Cokes, from the Coke machine every day. I knew I was in trouble, and I really needed to get us into a better situation. The funny thing is in a hotel room, suddenly my son figures out how to open the door. When you put the little latch across at the top, if you pull the door open real hard, that latch catches, and the shock of it will eventually open it. So my son figures out how to bang the door to get the latch to open for him to open it and head out into the hallways. When that started happening, I said, okay, I've got to figure this out. I've got to get him into a better scenario. And I thought to myself, I'm here in this situation because of one very sticky point. I owned a home in Tennessee that I could not sell. It was a very unique property. It was about an hour outside of Memphis. We lived on some land. It was a unique property. Somebody was going to have to really want that house, and probably somebody that worked back in Memphis was going to have to be willing to make that commute like I had been doing. So I've moved to Denver to take a job. I still have this house back in Tennessee that I can't sell. And if I can't sell it, I can't buy a place in Denver for me to live in. I've already found some place I want to move into. It's the cost of living was higher in Denver at the time. So it's a townhome style condominium thing. I love it. It's perfect. It's in a great location. It's where we wanted to raise our son, but I can't make it happen because I own this house back in Tennessee. So my wife, again, I've set the story there for you. My wife, she's gone out of town. She's back in Tennessee with her sister. I'm in a hotel room. I'm late at night watching TV. I got to go to work the next day. I probably should have already turned the TV off, but for some reason I'm not. And an infomercial comes on. And if you've never seen these old infomercials about how to buy and sell and flip houses, there was an infomercial from a gentleman by the name of Carlton Sheets. And I've never met him, This isn't a plug for him or his programs. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy. But I watched for half an hour on this program, and I decided right then and there that real estate was something I wanted to get involved with, whether it was a side gig, whether it was just to figure out a way to sell this house, whether it was a way to figure out creatively to buy a property in Denver. It didn't matter. I thought this program could help me. So I ordered it, had it delivered to the hotel. And a couple days later, it arrives. So like everything, and like many of you, I'm sure out there, every single individual CD and every 3-ring binder is all individually wrapped. I open the first one. I open the first binder, open the first CD, pop it in the CD. I start listening to it. And in that one CD, he talked about a strategy, a lot of different strategies, but one of the strategies he mentioned was this house swap, this ability to be able to trade houses with somebody. If you were, if you owned a property and you wanted to move up to a better property and you didn't have the cash for it, you could do house swaps. You could, basically trade houses, get somebody to take this property off your hands so you enable you to buy that property. All these types of different creative techniques. That was the one that stuck with me, and I will never forget what happened. Within a week of getting this and watching this one CD, and I'm going to let you on a little secret on the front end, that's all I ever watched. In fact, all of those, we recently found every one of those CDs, DVDs, 3-ring binders, they all were still in their original cellophane, all still packed up in a moving box that I never even bothered to open and watch the rest of it. But it didn't matter. It was worth its weight in gold because of the one idea I got from it, okay? So the idea I got was about, swapping houses. It just so happens that within a week, I get an offer on my house back in Memphis. The deal was, I'm an hour outside of Memphis. There's an attorney that lives right in the middle of the city that he wants to get out to more land, get some more space. He's got a growing family, but he's having trouble selling his house. It is located in the Valentine Evergreen district of Memphis. It's like 2 blocks north of Rhodes College. And it's not a bad house by any stretch. But the house had some issues for sure. And it was set up for a family, but this is not where families were wanting to live at this time. And so he was really struggling selling his house because the clientele, the people that were coming to buy it weren't families, and they didn't want a house that was set up this way. Well, for me, I get an offer from him, and it's contingent upon him selling his house. And I called my agent back in Tennessee and said, this is a great offer. I want to go see his house. Set up an appointment. I'm going to fly back to Memphis. I want to see the house. And I'll never forget her response. She was like, what are you talking about? You want to go see his house? You don't want to live here. What are you trying to tell me right now? And I told her, I want to go see his house because it's near Rhodes College. I believe that this house may be perfectly suited for an investor to lease out to college students. He doesn't want to own it. He needs to sell it in order to buy my property. I need him to sell his before I can accept his offer. So if I have the ability to buy his house, and here's the other kicker, his house was in around the $100,000 range. My house I was selling was around $300,000 range. So there's a big price difference here, especially in debt. So if I could buy his house to enable him to buy my house, that frees me from a $300,000 debt that I currently have. I get a new $100,000 debt. I still have a capacity for $200,000, which allows me to buy the townhome I really wanted in Colorado at the same time. I called up my broker and said, can I buy 2 houses at the same time? One will be an investment. One will be my primary residence. One will be in Colorado. The investment will be in Tennessee. He called me back within an hour and said, yes, you qualify. We can get this done. Because of the debt ratios and the fact that this property is going to be producing rent, they were able to qualify me to buy 2 properties at the same time. One for my new primary residence in Colorado. One is an investment in Tennessee. So I flew back to Memphis. I met my agent. She still thinks I'm crazy. She has not wrapped her mind fully around what it is I'm trying to accomplish. I go to visit their house near the university, and I realized as soon as I walk in the house that they were never going to sell it. It had enough issues, and let's just say it didn't exactly present itself the best, that they were going to have a hard time selling this house. If they couldn't sell their house, there was no way that they were going to be able to buy mine. So the only way this deal was going to happen is if I took the first step. Now, mind you, a month before this, real estate had never crossed my mind. Real estate was not something I had a great interest in. It wasn't something I really was thinking I was ever going to be getting started at. So I made them an offer. And of course, in true to clothier form, I offered well below asking price. I wanted to negotiate them down. They had already made their offer to me at lower than my price, but I hadn't done anything with their contract yet. So I offered them below their contract by a certain percentage and went back to mine and offered them the same dollar off on my contract, which was a much smaller percentage. They accepted it. They accepted my original offer. They accepted the new offer to buy my property. 30 days later, I was closing all 3 transactions in one day. I sold my primary residence. It enabled me to buy a investment property and a new primary residence, as I already told you, Colorado and Tennessee. Before the end of 2003, I went from, in August, knowing really nothing about real estate, buying this Carlton Sheets program, watching one or listening to one CD, thumbing through one 3-ring binder book of some material, to owning an investment property below market value that turned a positive cash flow. I was able to get it leased up before the end of the year to some college students, 2 college students, in fact. And I was able to move my family out of a hotel and into our first house out there in Colorado. Years down, I guess it was within the following year was when I would actually move forward and start my first grocery company out there again in Colorado. And kind of the rest is history, because once I bought that first house and I told my dad that I'd bought this first house, suddenly the discussions became that he also was doing this. He was wholesaling some houses, and I began to buy some initial properties from him. Some of those first 15 houses I bought were from my dad. I began to go to real estate investors associations out there in Colorado. I took on a partner after this to buy our first flip in Colorado. And then I began to, as I networked through the real estate investors associations, I met a few people that actually were interested in buying properties in Tennessee. And I would take those as leads and pass them on to my dad for his company, which was, the very, very beginning foundations of Memphis Invest back in 2003. So, I look back at it and I can kind of see the serendipity of all of this thing, that the simple fact of the situation I was in, the fact that my wife and son had left and gone home, so I'm up late at night with nothing to do, watching TV. I needed to get out of that scenario. I had a house I couldn't sell. I happened to receive an offer. I mean, all these things lined up perfectly for me to get started in real estate. If there's no other lesson I want you to take away from today, then it's this, okay? This is the main point. You have to get started. The key to actually moving forward, the key to building a portfolio, the key to raising money like I've talked about recently in a bank book, the key to making your first hires, whatever it ends up being, all of it, you just simply have to do it. I got extremely lucky. I will always tell people that I was very lucky with the way that I got started in real estate. Things lined up perfectly for me. But it's what led to the next business and the next business. I lost eventually my grocery business, but it was okay, because eventually that led me to start my real estate company, which led me to partner up with my dad and brother. So, eventually everything traces back to that one decision. I spent a little money. I educated myself very little, but it was just enough and gave me just the right idea to actually be successful and to move forward. If you're watching this and you're looking for what's that little oomph I need, well, there it is. You just need to do it. You need to take the steps to get you moving forward, and one step leads to the next, to the next, and the next, and you will look up many years later grateful that you took that very first step. Guys, thank you for joining me today on the Grind Podcast. Look, if you've been responding to our emails and letting us know the topics that you're interested in, please keep that up. If you're reading the Grind newsletter, the executive letter from Kent Sr., let us know what you think about it. Share the podcast, share the newsletter, like them, communicate back to us, tell us what you think. Until then, guys, grind on, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.